Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
It's time for another edition of Talk Back. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Nesbit, and with me, as always, is Justin Gay, your host and director of content. We've got a full NBA lineup as we close out round 2 of the NBA playoffs. We're definitely going to have to react to that Philly-Toronto series. I know if you follow us on Twitter, you recognize the fact that Justin and I did not have a very good Sunday night, so we will bring you into that, talk about our emotions and what we think is going to need to happen for the Philadelphia 76ers now moving forward as they are out of these playoffs. We'll get that Rockets-Warriors series, a lot to be discussed there, and we'll wrap up the round 2 playoffs with the Bucks and Boston, as well as the Blazers and the Nuggets. A couple of quick things to hit on and talk worthy. The Lakers found themselves a new coach, Tiger Woods, going for his second major of the year. That's right. It's hard to believe we're saying that, but as a Masters champion, he now has his sights set on the PGA Championship and the downforce package at Kansas Motor Speedway in the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series. It was an exciting race. We've got all of that and more on episode 246 of Talk Back.
Well, Eric, after Friday night Game 6, the Rockets-Warriors series, I thought for sure that's how we'd be starting this episode. I had my notes all written out. Thought that's the way we got to start the show. That was one of the more improbable victories you'll ever see. Feels like the dismantling of the Houston Rockets took place this weekend. Oh, and then Sunday night happens, and all of a sudden, everything changes with one shot by Kawhi Leonard. He's making Simon Ujiri look like a genius for going out and making that trade. So I got to jump right into it, Eric, here on the start to show. What did you think of the shot from Kawhi Leonard that ended the Sixers season?
Wow.
And have you recovered yet from it?
No, not really. Not totally, because at least in that one play, the defense was actually pretty good. I feel for Embiid a little bit in terms of the fact that he did what he was supposed to do on that play, and the ball bounced around on the rim a few times and goes in. It's just one of those freak moments in sports, and you got to hand it to Kawhi. He had a fantastic game. But as a Sixers fan, I wasn't all that surprised to see that ball get the home court bounce and go in, because it just kind of feels like that's how things go if you're a Sixers fan. You get right up to the line, get this roster together, and you feel like you're really close, and yet you're oh so far away, because as Sixers fans, we're not even going to the Eastern Conference Finals because of this shot by Kawhi Leonard. It took me, I would say, a good 60 to 90 seconds to even respond to some of the texts that started coming in, because I didn't want to curse at my own friends who were reacting to this shot. I needed a moment to just breathe and calm down. I just don't know what to say, because it wasn't just that shot. It really, Justin, I know you're going to get into it. It was the 2 minutes before that it all really broke down for the 76ers.
It wasn't the best shot that I've ever seen to close out a game or a series. I mean, you had Lillard's 3 at the buzzer earlier in these playoffs that probably was a better shot. But in terms of a shot that created drama, watching that thing like pinball around on the rim and like seeing it bounce straight up and like, I don't know if that's good or not. And then like the soft bounce down, and then you could just see it was almost like watching a ball on a roulette wheel. Just bounce and bounce and bounce. And then for Raptor fans, it hit the one number that they put all their money on. And for Philly fans, it did the complete opposite. It like jumped straight out of the number that you had all your money on, and basically just the whole season. But I actually thought, Eric, the defense at the end was not that great. I had texted you before that play, and I said, I'm not letting Kawhi catch this ball. I'm going to try to make life as difficult as it can. They let him catch, get the ball, and then drive straight right. And neither Simmons nor Embiid impeded him. They sort of chased him around and let him get a shot off. And even Embiid got in Simmons' way, which has kind of been the running joke that we've had for the last few months. It seems like Simmons and Embiid are always sort of in each other's way because they both want to play through the post, which we'll get into later in this first segment here talking about this game. But like you said, it should never have come down to this. This was a game that was 85-85, and then Philly, they reverted back to what we've talked about with them the last few months on this show, and we've talked about why Brett Brown was going to be in the hot seat if this team didn't advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's what was reported before Game 7, that his job was on the line. And the offense completely fell apart for 3 straight possessions. They had 1 shot clock violation, and 2 of them might as well have been shot clock violations because they barely got a shot even up, and they were terrible at that. Eric, I just thought the offense at the end of the game was just a microcosm of what is wrong with this team.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And you look at this whole series, actually, if it weren't for Jimmy Butler in games 2, 3, and 4, this team would have been out already. The fact that it got to a game 7 was much to do about Jimmy Butler in the middle of the series. Embiid and Simmons for 2 of those games combined for 20 points and 22 points or 23 points, I think, one of the other games. You can't have 2 superstars on your team combining for 20 points. I'm not talking about 20 points each. I'm talking about combining for 20 points. That's totally unacceptable. Then in game 6, they combined for 38 points and 20 rebounds or something like that. That's much more in line with what you're paying these guys to do. So you can't have the peaks and valleys and inconsistencies out of Embiid and Simmons. And I'll get to my point here in a little bit about that, because I think for Philly, you've got some big decisions that you have to make. How are you going to invest your money coming up here? And really, you're no further in these playoffs than you were the year before, even though the outlook on these playoffs was that you could potentially go to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. To me, I think this season is a failure. We talked about whether or not it would be a failure if they didn't get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the way that this series played out, it has to be seen as a failure. And then you go and include these last couple possessions in the last 2 minutes of the game. I feel like that coaching situation that we saw last year in the Boston series, it just rears its ugly head. Once again, these players don't seem to be organized. The fact that you're going in 2-3 possessions in a row, running down the entire shot clock and not getting a good shot off or getting a shot clock violation, it's absurd. I just can't understand it, especially when you have the talent on this roster that they have. I mean, come on, Redick, Harris, Butler, Embiid, and Simmons. That's a good starting 5 in the NBA. And other than Jimmy Butler and some spots where Harris and Redick saved a lot of these games, Embiid and Simmons have to look in the mirror after this season, and especially after these playoffs, and they've got a lot of questions to answer in my mind.
We talked before this series even started. We kind of ran down like a mock draft of the top 4 players for Philly, the top 4 for Toronto. And we kind of said, okay, Kawhi's probably the best guy in the series, but it's really close between him and Embiid. That was going into the series. Eric, it wasn't close at all through this series. Kawhi was far and away the best player on the court games 1 through 7. Embiid had flashes, but he was sick in more games than he actually had good games. And I don't know what it is about him. I don't know if as just a young man, he doesn't take care of himself and he's not resting. I don't know if there's rumors of him out, if he's out partying or whatever he's up to, but there's no way that he should be this sick all the time. He's going to, number one, they got to figure out what's going on there. And the next thing, he's got to get himself in better shape. He is dead tired after 3 minutes into a game. He's just pouring in sweat. He's got the hands on the knees. He's barely making it up the floor. You just see these lapses throughout the game. He doesn't box out. He doesn't have the energy to get out on the shooter. He makes bad passes out of fatigue. They've got to, number one, work on that. If they can get that fixed, they've got their cornerstone. But if they don't get that fixed, Eric, they're in big trouble. The next problem is Ben Simmons. When he is in attack mode, they're a different team. When he goes through what he did in Game 7, where he's taking 5 shots and he's not looking to drive and he's not taking advantage of mismatches, he's not taking guys like Van Fleet in the post, he's just clogging the offense again because he can't shoot the ball outside of 6 feet. That's the next step that they got. They have to figure out what he's going to do. If he's not going to work on his game and he is never going to create a jump shot where he is a threat from at least 15 to 17 feet, then I'm for Philly trading him, Eric. I don't care about the potential at this point. This is a league right now that's all about pace and space. He's got the pace down, but he cannot space the floor for them, and he's absolutely killing them. And then you're forcing Embiid to shoot all these threes because he's getting open looks, and the other time he's getting doubled. Then Simmons just becomes an offensive liability, especially in the fourth quarter when the game slows down. So, Eric, those are the two big things that I need to see. No matter what happens with Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, they have a cornerstone with Simmons and Embiid, but they both have so many deficiencies right now that they have to fix. If they don't fix them, Eric, it's going to be a long couple years in Philadelphia trying to figure out how this team went from going through the process, having all these assets, to now having a big man who's out of shape and a guard who can't shoot.
Well, I'll tell you what scares me, Justin, is Joel Embiid is a 7-footer. There's been a lot of guys talking about this, even in the media, where you might want to consider, if you're Philly, whether you're going to be in a position where you need to sell high on Joel Embiid. It's crazy to think that you wouldn't keep him because he's had some very bright moments this year. But I'm starting to buy in to some of these guys who it seemed contrarian at the time. This thought that you have a 7-footer who has neck issues, he has back issues, he has knee issues. Those don't get better for a 7-footer. And yes, he needs to take care of himself better. A lot of people have been talking about his diet not being very good, his rest not being very good. I agree with you. He looked terrible, especially in games 4 through 7 of this series. He really looked tired. He managed to, put something together in game 6, but then once again in game 7, he just looked tired. Down near the end of that game, we were texting each other back and forth, and he was getting out rebounded when 2 players are in the post, and Embiid's just not even jumping. He doesn't have the energy to jump. He's not taking care of himself. But is that really going to improve? If he's breaking down like 7-footers tend to break down, and that process has already started, a lot of orthopedic surgeons, a lot of people who look at this type of thing as their job on a daily basis think that that is a degenerative condition that doesn't really get better if you're 7 feet tall. And I don't want to, speculate that that's what's going on. But if you look at guys that had a lot of promise, like Arvydas Sabonis and Yao Ming, and I don't want to bring up Greg Oden because he had some knee issues, certainly. But the point is, when you're that big and your body starts to break down, there's really no saving it for an NBA level of play. So for me, if I'm Philly, yes, I think Ben Simmons has some significant problems, but I might go all in on trying to see if Jimmy Butler or Tobias Harris or some of these guys will build a core around Ben Simmons and then maybe try to sell high on Embiid.
Wow, that's a different take. I haven't heard that speculated yet, but I kind of see your point with him because, again, it's just the inconsistencies in both of their games. I just feel like Embiid has a higher ceiling, and maybe that makes him worth more in a trade is kind of what you're thinking.
Well, I agree that he has a higher ceiling. I totally agree with you because when he's played well, he is so valuable. I mean, when he puts up the 25 and 18 type of games, that's great. But one of the sportscasters that really kind of a notion that really hit me, he said, would you rather sell a year early or keep him a year too late?
No, I can completely see that. But I just think, let me ask you this way. Do you think that this loss and how devastated he looked after the game and everybody's seen the video of him crying and being consoled by his girlfriend, do you think that motivates him to make some changes either in his lifestyle, the way he's going to work this offseason, and the need for conditioning and to shed some weight?
I hope so. I mean, I like the guy. I like rooting for Embiid. I like it when Embiid and Simmons and Butler and Harris and Redick are all playing as a unit. They're a really exciting team to watch, and I really enjoy Joel Embiid and what he brings to the 76ers. So if he gets in shape and works on his conditioning, works on his diet, and if you were to say, okay, Eric, I'm going to guarantee you that he has an 8-year career in the NBA as a productive number 5, I'd say, okay, if you're going to guarantee me that, I'll take him. But if you say he's going to try to do the conditioning and we're going to give him a big contract and a year later he's going to Yao Ming it, he's going to be gone, I don't want to see that.
See, I feel like Philly will never move him. From a fan standpoint, I feel like the fans could understand with Simmons' game, but I think they've seen too much or they think too highly of Embiid to move him. Now, if he keeps doing this, going down this path, sure, he's going to start shredding his trade value, and then what do you have? I'd like to give him one more offseason to see how he comes back. I'd also like to see what they're going to do going forward with him. Like going into the All-Star game, why did he play? Why was he out there and going through practice